Hi, I'm Brian, and welcome to Munros for Dogs. On this trip, Charlotte and myself are taking up a group walk to do Beinn via the Schoolhouse Ridge. These were two Munros that Charlotte was really looking forward to doing, and we picked the perfect day to do them. It was absolutely gorgeous. Walk in to these Munros from the car park's no issue. You'll eventually meet a farm track, head up until you find a cairn that will take you onto the prominent track that takes you up to the Munro itself. The lower part of the track's very heathery and it's quite rocky underfoot, with potential being a bit boggy if you get the bad weather. The steepness of the track does ease off a bit as you're approaching the Schoolhouse Ridge itself. It's a bit more zigzaggy as you're going up. Myself and Charlotte were actually looking forward to getting to the ridge and doing the scramble and seeing how the dogs get on with it. We'd watched several YouTube videos on the ridge and none of them showed it being overly difficult. This wasn't going to be the case. Unfortunately, there was a few bits that had to really help Cody up, and there was also a bit later on that he just couldn't get up. If I'd maybe brought my rope that I usually have for him, then I could have got him up, but I didn't. So we do have to have an alternate route just near the top, as you'll see in the video. The scrambles are actually really quite enjoyable. Some of the group was a bit nervous about them because there's a lot of steep drops, narrow ledges and things, but overall they're a lot of fun and everyone within the group did really well to get themselves up Schoolhouse Ridge, especially the dogs. As for the scrambling sections, there's a lot of footholds and handholds, so you just have to pick your way up and get past them. They're not overly difficult, so if you are new to scrambling, do a bit of practice. Some of the drops are a bit nerve-wracking, but nothing that you can't handle. And if you are planning on taking your dog this way, I'd make sure you've got a very good harness. Cody's got a One Tiger's tactical harness. It's got some good grips on it, front and back, so I'm able to use that to actually lift him up some of the areas where he was struggling. He's a big heavy dog, so I need a decent harness to help manoeuvre him up the difficult areas. Here we are at the rock face that I couldn't hold you up. It's not that it was really difficult, it's just the fact there wasn't a lot of purchase for me to stand on to manoeuvre them to get higher, and you can't really see too well, but the drops are quite severe at this bit, so if either of us fell, it could potentially have been fatal. So I decided to go round to the left of this rock feature One of the group kindly came with me, which was really nice. Although, as you will see, this route is not for the faint-hearted. It's a very narrow track, bit of a drop to your left, as you'll see, and you follow this along until you can manoeuvre right into a gully, as you will see, and that takes you up past the difficult rock face, and then you eventually rejoin the Schoolhouse Ridge further up, so you don't actually miss much of the ridge. The dogs are very well behaved. Corey doesn't pull or do anything stupid, luckily, because of the terrain we're on. So if you do have a dog that perhaps pulls, a bit nervy, can potentially freak out, I'd maybe avoid taking your dog up the Schoolhouse Ridge, just for this fact, unless you've got people that can help you lift your dog up some of the difficult sections, especially if it's a larger breed. Smaller and medium breeds shouldn't have much of a difficulty actually doing this ridge themselves. We were just trying to pick our way through the hill to find a way up, and we're now just approaching where we find the gully that did take us up past the rock face. Gully's quite shaly, so it's hard to get purchase on your feet, and it's a bit slow going because you're constantly trying to slide down. It's also reasonably steep as well, but we managed to get up it without major difficulty. It was slow going just because of the terrain, but we were always in earshot of the bulk of the group that was still continuing up the ridge, and every so often we could actually see them going up. Going this way does not make heading up the Munros any easier. In fact, it's a bit more difficult than probably the ridge is. Well, it's much more physically demanding than the ridge is. The ground's not overly great, it is quite steep, but you can pick your way through the terrain and get back on track to the ridge itself. Once you're out of the gully, you still push round the hill to the left, but eventually the ground will ease to your right, and then you can start pushing back up towards the ridge. It gets a bit more heavy at that point, and there's still a lot of shale about, but after the gully, it's easing off for you. That's us caught up with the group, and we're now continuing up the rest of Schoolhouse Ridge. And thankfully there was no need to do any more diversions, as the rest of the terrain was actually manageable for the dogs to get up. Everyone in the group did really well to reach the top of Schoolhouse Ridge, which you can just see in the background. You then come down and head up towards the Munro itself. If you get a day like this, you're going to get some really good photographs of it. It's got a nice little ridge walk that takes you all the way to the top as well. Nothing too difficult. The terrain is also nice and gradual towards the summit, so it gives you a chance to get your energy back after all the scrambling you've just done. And here we are at the top of our first Munro. The views were absolutely amazing. Glencoe and the surrounding areas is just a great place in Scotland to be, especially on a day like this. As you can see, we bumped into another group with a dog on the summit. They didn't actually come up Schoolhouse Ridge. They decided to just go up in between the two Munros and then branch left and branch right to get them done, go back the way they came. So if you do have a big dog and you're not overly keen on doing the ridge, that might be the best way for you to get these two done. It's also worth pointing out the way we came didn't actually have much water on the hills themselves. It was quite a hot day and the dogs didn't struggle, but we had to keep making sure they got water. There was a nice pool of water off of the first Munro where we all decided to have lunch, and the dogs were able to cool themselves off and get a drink as well. After you reach the Beinn, you then start heading up to your second Munro. Bit rocky and grassy initially, it does get more rocky as you go. Eventually you are rewarded with a great view of the Munro itself. From here you've got another little ridge walk to get to it, nothing difficult, and it's actually quite fun. Then you've got the walk up the summit itself, which is quite bouldery at times with some grass areas, but again nothing too difficult for you or your dogs. Just bear in mind, once you get onto the final push, there are some very steep drops off to your right, so we kept a bit more to our left and continued up that way. There is a really nice path that takes you onto a narrow ledge, so if you want to go that way, that's up to you. We decided to just avoid that bit and go up and round it. That's the narrow ledge that you can actually see there, just cut out from the rock itself. here we are at our second summit. 2 more in the bag for the dogs and the group. We really couldn't have asked for better weather. The views we got were amazing. Don't even think the pictures do it justice. Despite it being a warm day, the dogs never struggled, and you can actually see how happy they are in the photos. They did absolutely amazing, as always. Just on the weather, it's always good to know your dog's tolerance, what they can take and what they can't. And if it is going to be a day like we got, make sure you take plenty of water on this hill, as your dogs won't get a lot of water until the descent off the two Munros. After we had our fill of taking photographs on the summit, it was now time to head back down the way we came. We were heading back down to the Beinn, and then we were going to turn left and head down into the valley. Heading down, it's initially a little bit steep. A few rocky paths, nothing too difficult. There were a few sheep on the hill. They weren't actually in the low ground, they were up high, so there was no issue for our dogs. And finally, there's a lot of water sources scattered about this area. There's also a nice fast flowing stream if you personally need to replenish your water supply on the walk out. The terrain does eventually level off, and it's a nice gradual descent towards the forestry area. This section of the route can be a little bit boggy. There was a few boggy areas even for us in this weather, so just be prepared if you're going to go up in rubbish weather. You eventually meet this narrow track that skims along the right hand side of the hill, which will eventually take you down to the forest. If there's people in front of you that are a lot slower, there's not really many ways to kind of get past people, so just be aware of that when you're walking along. Once off the hill, you end up in this nice forestry track. It's really easy going terrain, decent track as you can see, and for us, we also got some much needed shade from the sun as well. This route will lead you all the way down towards Jeep Track, which will ultimately take you to the road, which you walk along back to your car park. I'd like to thank you for watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe, and we will see you on our next adventure.